guys. So this is the first time I'm doing this, so bear with me if there's any technical difficulties. With all of everyone at home trying to be more conscious of exercising at home now that they don't have the facilities and equipment, I thought it might be kind of fun to just casually go through some really basic movement patterns. So a push-pull, squat and hinge, things that can be easily done anywhere, things that we're seeing a ton of on Instagram and social media and things like that, that could be better, that could be addressed a little bit better so that you can get a little bit more out of it, really is all that we're seeing. So I'm just going to go through some push patterns, some pull patterns, demonstrate some things, and maybe give some details to think about. And then if you have any questions pertaining to what I'm doing, please ask. If you're having issues with anything at home, please ask. We've got Lexus behind the camera there, so she'll let me know. And we'll just kind of go through like that. So first thing that we want to look at, we've been seeing a ton of our pull-ups. This is something that on one end of the spectrum are very, very difficult. People, we even see that coming to the gym say, I've never been able to do a push-up, I won't ever be able to do a pull-up. And then there's other people that are really strong in their upper body, can do a pull-up, but don't utilize the full range of motion. So we're going to look at first hanging from the bar, how we can do that, and then that initial pull to start developing the pull-up. So when we're hanging from the bar, if we're hanging from a bar that we can put our hands around, if we're outside or we're just hanging from something else that we may not be able to put our full hand around, then we're just going to apply the same technique, but we won't be able to put the thumb around. So if we have something that can fit in our hand, hanging from the bar first is thumbs around, and I'm going to push my pinkies into the bar like this, like I'm bending it into a frown. What this is going to do is now start to engage my upper back and shoulders. If I'm just hanging passive, I'll be all the way down at the bottom here. My shoulders will be at my ears. So first, if I just push those pinkies into the bar, you can see that my head lifts a tiny bit because now my shoulders are actively engaged. From here, what we want to do is maintain our midline stability. So by pushing our toes in front, hips forward, and then tucking those ribs into our hips, keeping a hollow body position, now we're tight on the bar and we're already working. From here, we're going to keep our head neutral, and a partial pull-up just to warm up the shoulders is just a tiny pull. So I'm going to pull a tiny bit and try to keep that midline position. If we tend to automatically break in the top position, then we know that we've got a little bit of work to do in our midline, which is normal and fine. So what we need to do is tuck a little harder, push a little harder into the bar, and we can also hold our breath. That will help keep us tight in the midline. So that we can pull while maintaining that position. So that's a really good way to start pull-ups, to warm up the shoulders. When we're trying to do a full pull-up, if we have that full pull-up, let's keep that position. Let's keep our head forward. Go all the way over the bar, and then straight back down. So in between each rep, we should be all the way up and all the way down. If we have that full pull-up within our possession, then we should try to get as much out of that as we possibly can each rep. We see a lot of these, which is just a half pull-up. So if we're trying to take advantage of this time at home and develop this strength, we'll get more out of that pull-up if we're actually going full range. So that's what we like to look at. If we're still developing that, a really nice way to develop the strength of a pull-up is to do a negative pull-up. So a negative pull-up is just getting ourselves over the bar somehow. We would put like a box or something that we could jump up on. So I'm going to jump, and then I'm going to go as slow as I can on the way down, thinking about maintaining that position. Even if it looks like this, if we're staying tight and still descending fast, then we're still building something. So that's a really good way to scale a pull-up at home or anywhere. Hanging on to anything. We'll do the same thing with a chin-up, same thing with mixed grip. All the different ways to hold on to things is valuable because you're going to find different parts in there that will strengthen things. Let's see. Pull up. That's it. We'll look at some push-ups. This is something that everybody's been seeing, the push-up challenges going around, which is great. I think that some of these challenges going around are awesome because it's just getting people moving, and moving is better than not moving. But we've also been seeing a lot of compromised positions in the push-up. So breaking that down and looking at how to best get strength from that push off the floor will be valuable to everybody. So that position from the floor, am I in frame? Okay. Keeping our hands underneath our chest as opposed to like out in front. And then fairly close in. So I would say about shoulder width apart. If we're really wide, we're going to have trouble with our elbows popping out to the side. So keep those hands right underneath our shoulders, and then keep them underneath directly our chest so that we can stay in line. So the top of the plank is where we want to assess the situation first. So putting our feet together, driving our elbows back, and then tucking those hips to our ribs to maintain a nice neutral spine. If we can stay here, then we've got something. If we're already bending in the midline or not being able to support ourselves, then we'll look at scaling. But just being able to hold in that position is going to be important. The push-up, we get the most work out of when we're moving the body as one altogether. So we try to think about from our shoulders to our feet as one locked line. So I'm locking that in. I'm going to lower myself down, chest and belly to the ground. That's the bottom of a push-up. Anything else is just half a push-up. So from here, elbows in, staying tight. I'm going to move everything at the same time. And then arms lock out at the top. Going down, if we can touch our chest and belly at the same time, then we know that we're neutral here. If we're just touching our chest, then our butt is up. If we're just touching our belly, then our chest is too high. So we're not in a straight line. So it's good to assess what's touching the floor and then trying to maintain that. So again, if we're feeling some fluctuation there, we can hold our breath, push that belly out, and keep it held for that entire duration. If we don't have that push-up from the floor, then we can scale it. How we scale it here to develop the push-up, how it should be developed, is by just elevating our chest onto something like a box, a chair, a table, anything. So if I'm on a box, I'm just going to put my hands, again, still underneath my shoulders, same width apart, feet together, still tucking my ribs into my hips, and still driving those elbows back. Now I'm going to come all the way down to the surface, touch my sternum to the box, and then come back up. Again, we would prefer an elevated, full range push-up to an on-the-ground half push-up, because that is going to develop a full push-up and gain more strength than a half version. So what we like to think about, especially at Wolf Brigade, is just developing the whole system and developing the strength in all of those ranges. Because if we're just developing part, then there's going to be a hole in the boat somewhere. Be mindful of these elbows. We've been seeing a lot of this. That's going to really start to manifest itself in the shoulders because you're driving them out into a position that it doesn't like. So if we feel those elbows chicken winging, just drive them back so that they're facing your toes. So even here, if we start to descend, they're going to want to go out. So if we drive those elbows back and broaden our chest while we put those guts on tight, then we'll move all in one. Our elbows will be to the side, keeping our shoulders in a really organized position. If this happens to be too low, then scale it up. Scale it up wherever that you can maintain a hard, rigid posture and then find that full range of motion. So same thing on the floor. If we can get to here and then back up, that's something, we know something, but it's not going to develop that full range. So instead of doing 100 of these, which will get you kind of nowhere, we would rather do 10 really hard, really slow, full range push-ups. The push-up is a great exercise, and for a lot of women especially, these two exercises are really intimidating and scary, but they don't have to be at all. Scaling them like we've shown and developing it slowly, those will all strengthen and be able to get full range, full dead hang, full on the ground push-ups and pull-ups in no time. So it's just a matter of sticking with it and then bracing and staying hard. Even people that are really high-level athletes and are good at these kinds of motions, I see a lot of this happening. So we're like bending, still at the waist. So slowing everything down, especially if we're beginning, or even when we're advanced and we just do these like off the top of our hat, if we slow it all down and count, if we take a 3 count down, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then really assess where our body is in those positions, we can start to find those weak spots. If we tend to be weak up in our upper abdominals, and that's where we end up pushing, then we'll find that if we slow it down. The good thing about finding it is then we can find it and work on it and then make it stronger. Let's see. I think that's it for push-up. No questions so far. Okay. We'll move on to squat and hinge. These are excellent things to be able to do at home. Of course, as everybody knows, and we've been trying to make people aware that we have tons of online information. Our public assistance project is online for free, has been since 2018. Matt from Atlantic Avenue Athletic Club, that's a tongue twister, has been narrating the board for the last 10 or 11 days now, and is going to do so for the full 30 days. And that is extremely valuable. If you haven't gotten into that, or at least done a day, I highly recommend that. It may look like not a ton, or you may look at a water jug and say, we have, big, strong, tough guys that these workouts take out. So if you put into it what you want to get out, you will definitely get out what you want. So go ahead and check that out on wolfbrigade.com's website. We've got a ton of good stuff on there for when we're at home. So let's look at squat. Let's look at a squat mechanic. Lots of different ways to squat, depending on what our goals are. There's, powerlifting squats. There's all these different kinds of squats. What we want to look at is an organized, positionally sound squat that will not hurt us. So everyone's stance is going to be a tiny bit different. It's just going to depend on your bones, basically. So when we find a squat stance that allows us to get below parallel, break that knee line, and still being able to drive our knees out, then we'll just mark that and know what that feels like and try to replicate it each time. Our toes can be forward, but probably they're going to be canted out a bit. Most people's alignment is going to allow for that toes out position. So once we have our feet placed on the ground in the stance that we would like, we're going to drive outward. We're going to grab the ground with our toes so that we feel that arch in our foot establish and maintain. And then the drive is going to be outward. When we're standing here, we're going to tuck those hips. Again, tuck our ribs to our hips so that we're maintaining some bracing in our midline, and then our back stays neutral. At first, I would suggest just grabbing your wrist really hard and screwing those elbows together to create some tension in your upper body. That's going to help keep your midline braced as well. So if we drive those elbows in, to start this descent of the squat, I'm going to drive my knees out like someone's got two lassos around my knees and is pulling apart. So hard brace, drive out. I'm going to get my hips to below my knees and then drive back up. So I don't want to go all the way here and break that position, lose all tension, and then round forward. So we want to find where we still have that tension, hips just below a knee, so that we can drive forcefully back up. We want to maintain that upper back position so that we're not bending over or folding in that squat. And we don't want to be driving our knees so far forward that our heels come up off the ground. So, foot fully placed and rooted into the ground. Chest broad, shoulders back. And then finding that squat and right back up. Many times if we're having trouble finding that range in the squat, just because we're lacking a little bit of midline stability. Super common, so holding something in our arms will help. I like the hammer because this tends to fix every single person's squat right away, because you don't want it to hit you in the face, so you're going to hold on tight. So if we hold this hammer up, still focusing here so that we're not chicken necking our head up, driving those elbows in, and then finding those same details. Feet are rooted, knees go out, find the bottom, and then we drive back up. For public assistance, if we're using a bottle, same thing. You can hold this here, out in front. Out in front, it's going to be a little harder and make those guts work a little bit more. And again, if we slow this down, we'll find where those holes in the boats are. If we're just driving through countless squats, we're going to miss something in some of those reps. So slow it down, hold as tight as we can, especially when we're working out at home. We may not have the weights available to us that we normally do. You can make the weight by bracing hard. We don't do a ton of individual sit-ups here because everything we're doing is a sit-up. If we address our midline like we are trying to use it every single rep of everything, then this starts to build. So even if I'm just doing an air squat, I'm going to push my belly out, brace as hard as I can. That's hard. That's hard because you're working more than you normally would by just kind of like lazily going through squats. I could do this all day, so could you. So making it harder intentionally and slower will develop those things that we want to develop, and then we'll also find those positions that we're struggling with. All right, lastly, we'll look at a hinge motion. Hinge and squat are two different things, working two different sets of muscles. Squats are going to mainly focus more on our front. Hinge work is going to be more on our back. A really good way to assess our hinge is to hold something on our back. So we like to use the mace. Not everyone has a mace, but everyone has a dowel. Everyone has a broom somewhere. So you can just hold that. Do you mind giving me a dowel? We're going to take that implement and hold it on our back. The mace is nice because it gives us a little feedback, a little more than a dowel. I'm going to attach my head. I'm going to attach in between my shoulder blades and my tailbone. Now, with my feet hip-width apart, I'm just going to push my hips back. My knees will bend as a result of hinging, but it doesn't start with a knee bend. If all three of those points are still attached when my chest is facing the floor, then I know my spine is neutral. And so I can floss through that position. Same thing with the dowel. This is a broom. I want to see if my spine is staying straight. I'm just going to hold this at my head and at my hips, and then same thing. So if we tend to arch a ton, I'll show you this one. If we tend to arch a ton in the hinge position, this is a deadlift, a kettlebell swing. We tend to arch a ton, then our shoulders will come off the mace. So then we can learn how to find that neutral position again. If we tend to round a ton, that's going to come up off our low back. So that we adjust and find neutral. Neutral is essential. Lifting anything with a curve anywhere, we're going to hurt ourselves. No matter what. Eventually, we will hurt ourselves because all of that force is going to where that curve is. So finding and keeping that neutral position will lead us down the line to a really healthy, safe lifting positions, a healthy, strong back. So the hinge, like I said, is a deadlift. For deadlifting at home, if we have kettlebells or anything that we're picking up, this position will be essential. So finding that hinge, so hips back, chest to the ground, head neutral. We're going to find the handle, and then again, push those pinkies into the handle so that we're engaging that upper back. We're almost lifting off the ground, and then as we're braced, I'm not braced right now, that we would lift and then straight back down. So the hips are the main movers in a hinge. are the main mover in a squat. That's how we like to think about it, so that we can differentiate the start and stop of those movements. If we tend to kind of hybridize this, then we're not getting the full value of those specific exercises. Same thing with that good morning. Really locking into place that upper back, finding that good hard hinge, and then straight back up. This would be the same thing as kettlebell swing. Same exact motion. Hard hinge. So, there we have it. Huh? Oh, good job, yeah. Alexis reminded me. Same thing with that swing. You can do a swing with a jug. You can hold this here for a good morning. If you had two, this would be a good thing for a suitcase deadlift as well. Just finding that hard hinge. I can't breathe now. So I hope that's helpful. I really admire everyone trying to keep active. Environment is huge. We come to the gym because we push each other, we inspire each other. I will always do more at the gym with my training partners than at home by myself. That probably says something about me. So not having that is tough. It's tough. Not having that push, that drive, but we can still find that within each other. And I think this social media, these challenges and things like that are helpful because they're keeping us accountable a little bit, but let's also keep us accountable in our position. So not just doing, but doing well and with purpose. Details do matter. That's what makes you stronger. And that's what we'll get new people advancing quickly, and that's what will keep advanced athletes also progressing. You will not find someone that isn't applying details strictly, not advancing in something. When people start thinking they know everything and throw it out the window and don't think about what they're doing anymore, that's when these plateaus happen. So keep moving. I hope this is helpful. Please let me know if you'd like any more of this or anything else specifically. I'm happy to help any way I can. All right, thank you very much. See you later.